Okay, it's now recording. So welcome to today's tutorial. We'll be finishing the exam that we're doing 2024. So we had already printed and did quite a lot. So the only thing that's left is the, I think, update logic, right? Okay. So I'm thinking about it. Sometimes I think you can put the update logic in a function called update, and sometimes you might choose not to. I'm not sure what would be the difference, but I'm going to choose to use the function. I'm going to create a function called update. So at each turn, right, the water above ground spreads. So they said at each turn. It means that after movement. If we look at the main.cpp, you see that the switch statement, right? This one. This is where we move the player. So the update function should come after the switch statement. So update must come here. Right? Because they said after each turn. Remember the switch statement, that's when you move the player. So after you've moved the player, because they said after each turn, or they said at, right? Let me see. At each, no, it's not after. My bad. It's at, right? Which means that it should be inside the move player because they said at each turn, right? You could technically could put it after. It's fine. I think it still works the same way. But then they said at each turn, at each turn, it's technically the same thing as after, right? Because when you put this code inside the move player function, you're most probably going to put it at the end, meaning after you've moved the player. So let's do that. So for each water item above the ground, if there are any empty locations within the 1 square radius of the water item, those empty locations are filled with water. So we are looking at the item above the ground. If you notice something, the array has changed. We are no longer looking at the underground array. We are now working with the above ground. So let me use a totally different color and then highlight this. You see now it mentions above ground. So we're going to use the above ground array, of which I called it array water. So I'm going to go back to code blocks. It's up to you. To be honest, it's up to you how you do it. It's after the movement, or you put it within the move player function, which is the same thing as after the movement. So I'm going to add an update function. Since I want to call the function inside the main.cpp, I need to start declaring it in the header file and the CPP file, then implement it in the CPP file. If I didn't want to call it inside the main.cpp, I would have just simply went to the CPP file of the header file and then just simply declared an update function here and then just use it. But in this case, I want it to be visible inside of my main.cpp. So I'm going to make the function here called update. So void update. Come on, my laptop is jamming. Okay. So it needs to change. You see the name, it says update. So we are changing the game mode. So we're going to pass it by reference. So game mode pass by reference, rec world, right? Straightforward. Then I'm going to copy this function, write the implementation. It doesn't matter where you put it. I'm going to put it somewhere here above this, right? So yeah, let's do the update. So the update, they said for each water item above the ground, if there are any empty locations within 1 square radius. So that means that, yeah, there's quite a lot of logic here. First things first, we need to find the water item. So that means we need to iterate through the game mode. So for loop int r is equals to 0, r is less than reqworld dot rows r plus plus. Then we have for int c is equals to 0, c is less than reqworld dot calls c plus plus. And then yeah, remember the two game modes are of the same size. So it doesn't matter, you use the same rows and columns. So for each water item, so that means I need to do an if statement to check if I have found a water item, right? So I'm gonna check if I found a water item. And since it's a water item, it's inside the water array. So we're going to use that array. So if record, and the array is part of the record structure. So I'm going to start by saying record dot array water at the location RC. If it's equals to water, right? That means I found a water item. And the coordinates for the water item, it's what? RC. Those are the coordinates. Then what needs to happen here? That's why I say this question is a bit tricky, because you need to understand the flow. So what needs to happen here is that after we found the water item, remember it does it for the whole game mode. It's gonna go around looking for the water item. We need to do square radius. So we need to look around the square radius of this coordinate at RC. Remember this water item is at the coordinate RC. So that's the coordinate. So we're gonna use these coordinates to find if there is any surrounding, if there's any empty locations around the square radius. If there is, each and every single empty location we find, we occupy it with the water item. So let me make a demonstration. But I did explain this. I'd advise you to go to rewatch the recordings. I did explain especially the first past paper we did. I explained quite a lot today. I explained square radius and everything. So square radius, I get it's when you have, they say this code, these are the coordinates, right? And just think about these black coordinates or these black circles, right? That's around it. And then they say the water item is here. So this would be what we call the square radius. So from here, going downwards up until here, all of that, we call that square radius. So all of these black circles. So to find those black circles, you make use, if you look at the record, the previous paper we did, if you look at this, you use these coordinates to point it, to make it point to start here and end at this row, and also start at that column and end at this column, so that you cover every single coordinate around that feature. So I did talk about the formula, and like I said, the location is RC, so we're going to use RC as the coordinates for that water item. So we're going to need two for loops. So int, let me use I and j. So I is equals to, it starts at I r plus 1. No, not r plus 1, r minus. And then I is less than or equals to r plus 1. And then I plus plus. And then you do the same thing. So now we're going through the columns. So you're going to use C minus 1. And then J is less than or equals to C plus 1. And then J plus plus. Right? But before we continue, this would go through all these two for loops, right? They basically go through the square radius. Basically, it goes through all the coordinates around the water item. So what I'm going to do, right, before I do an if statement to check if that location is empty, right? That's what we want to do. The very first thing I need to do is I need to check if that coordinate is within the game mode. So I need to check if the coordinate at ij, because this is the ij loop, if is in world, because it might be out of the game mode. Let me show you an example. Let's say you're trying to access this location. Let me use purple. Let's say you're trying to access this location. What if this location does not exist? So you see it's out of the game mode, so that means our game would crash. What if this one does not exist? What if this one does not exist? So all of them might not exist. So I need to check all of them individually before I try to occupy the location. So I'm going to check if is in world, and then I need the rows and columns, which is basically rec world dot rows, comma rec world dot calls, comma. What is the coordinate that I'm checking? It's ij. Remember, I said it here at ij. That's the coordinate. So ij, I need to check if that coordinate is within the game mode. If it is, then what should I do now? Check if an empty location has been found, because they said you can only place a water item if the location is empty. If it already contains a water item, we don't want to override it. It's redundant. There's no need. So I'm going to check if, obviously, we're going to check the array, which is part of the record structure. So when I say record dot array water, because I'm dealing with above ground at location ij. Remember, we're doing square radius, so we're going to use ij. At ij, if it's equals to empty location, that means at that specific location ij, only within this if statement, that's where I place the water item. So I'm gonna add a water item. So record.array water at ij is equals to water. And then that's basically it for that part, the first part. So we did add the water item. So as you can, if you read the question again, for each water item above the ground, each water item, we did check that. If there are any empty locations within 1 cell radius, we did check that. Those empty locations are filled with water. So we did do exactly that. That's done. Then this one, at each turn, there must be an option to view the situation above the ground, right? When this option is selected, the water does not spread for that turn. Reminds me of that TikTok, Mama. Yeah, this question is fighting. It's like literally preventing you from. I think this is by far this one here is the difficult question. So far, with everything that I've seen so far, that's a difficult question. Because once already as you did that, so that should be common knowledge. So at each turn, there must be an option to view the situation above ground. If you view the situation, what exact information should you see? That's my chat. That's what I want to know. Um, hmm. Oh, it's always underground. I think, okay, you see what I'm thinking, right? My solution, what I'm thinking, and I think it's fine. We already did. Let me see. This is trick. Yeah, I think we might need a third array. I don't know. It seems like we might need a third array. That's what I'm thinking, right? I think we might need a third array here. Basically, a third array, its purpose, whatever, because they said you should show the situation. That would insinuate that the user should not always be able to see the situation above the ground, right? So that means we need to always choose an option to reveal the water. So that means when you run it, it should actually be blank. It should be empty here. Then if the user chooses an option to reveal, then they can now start seeing the water items. These water items, this stars. So that's very tricky. The reason why I'm saying we need to introduce this a third array, basically a second array, because this array will manage the above the ground. So we need a second array for above the ground. The array water is the one that stores the actual symbols. Then we need another array whereby it starts by basically it's gonna be a Boolean array, true or false. Meaning, is it true that the items, each feature should be visible? So we should change all the second array to be true only when the user has chosen the option to reveal the state of the above the ground array. So let me show you what I'm trying to do. So let's check this first. Let's run it first. Yeah. So you see, there's the game mode, right? It is revealing, but this is incorrect because this side, the first half, right, which is the water array, it should actually be black. You shouldn't see anything until the user decides to enter a choice that says choose. Like, do you want to show the state? If it says show, then the user should now start seeing the stars. Yeah, this question paper is on fire. Exam is it's not a joke. Exam is not a joke, Shema. Why you? Look at all this code to show you that this is not a joke. You see how long this thing goes down. It goes, yeah. But once you get it, you get it. As long as you have good logic skills, critical thinking skills, you should be okay. So let me think. At each turn, there must be an option to view the situation above ground. So in each turn, that means inside the update logic function, we should ask the user, do they want to see the state or not? So what I can do is I can do this, right? I can do this. Yeah, it's gonna be tricky. I'm thinking about a solution. So I need to obviously this is gonna change my record structure. I need to add more things in the record structure. So let me see. Let me create another array, right? And this array is also gonna be of type Boolean, right? Because it's gonna store true or false, meaning true, you should when it's true, it means that you should reveal the game characters. If it's false, that means you don't reveal them. So let me do that. So put it here. So 2D water. This one I'm gonna call it is visible, right? And all of them they start as invisible. And hey, this is a lot. Managing 3 arrays. Yeah, this game was not easy. Let me see. Okay, we can actually okay. Let's not put the array approach. It's gonna make the code complicated. Let's just create a Boolean variable. I'm gonna call it is visible. So is visible, right? Whether we're gonna decide to make it visible or not. It's gonna start by being false, right? Until the user is given a choice to choose. Then only then can you update the is visible variable. So I'm gonna go to create world function, and then I'm gonna come here and say rec world dot is visible, set it to false, right? Then I'm gonna do this. And then when it comes to displaying, let me do that. The show world function, what does it do? Oh yeah, it shows both arrays. Yeah, okay. So yeah, this question paper was showing. What I can do is this part. You see this part? Remember the first half is the water array. As stated, you can see it's array water. What I would do, right? I'll still print. You see this thing over here, this. I'll still display it, that's fine, right? But I should not display this. I should only display this if the is visible variable is equals to true, right? So I'm gonna cut this and say if rec world dot is visible. You can just leave it as is visible, or you just literally check if it's equals to true. That's up to you. I'm gonna leave it as just as visible. If it's visible, right, it means that the user has chosen the option to make it visible. Then it should display this. And then let me show this, copy that, and then put it here. Else, I need to have an else. Else it will simply print out this. Let me think. No, it should still print, even if it prints nothing, it should still print. So I need to actually repeat this. This is annoying. I need to repeat this here and change it a little bit. So I'm gonna simply do this, delete all of this because we're no longer printing the array. We're just gonna print empty spaces, that's all. So print empty space until we reach that. Yeah. So let me do that. Let me build and run so that you see the difference. Now it shouldn't show anything on the first half, right? You see, it's not showing anything. It's empty, but it's still kind of lacking a bit. Uh, what can I do to make it better? Let me see. Oh, you're displaying the feature first and then a space. In this case, there's no feature, and so you're gonna need to display two spaces. So we're gonna display the first space for that. That should have represented a feature, and then another space for the actual space. So two. So every time we're gonna print two, right? So let me try to build. It should, let me see, it should be better now. Yeah, perfect. So you see, this is empty. The first half is empty, is not shown, right? Only it should show only when the user says he chooses the option to show the state of the first array. Yeah, I know the code is kind of complicated, but that's basically how they would expect you to approach it. Like exam is not easy, Shan. Exam is not straightforward. So I would advise you to attempt the bonus so that you can cover up those marks you're gonna miss on the logic. So let's see. So see blah, blah, blah. What else do I need to check here? They said at each turn, right? There must be an option to view the situation above ground. So at each turn, meaning in the update function. So when the update function is called, the very first thing we need to do is we're gonna output a string to say the user can choose true or false, right? Well, yes or no, I mean. So I'm gonna need to say yes. Hey, this is let me say yeah, let me say option Y, right? When you enter option Y, this is to show the what the situation above ground. So show the situation above ground, right? And then backslash n, and then we put another option for no. Do not show the situation. Yeah, keeping it simple, right? Straightforward. Then I need to grid in the choice that the users entered. Then we can check if it's lowercase. Yo, yeah, this is weird. You see, and it's only the last bullet point. What I would advise you to do, right? If you manage to do everything and then you get to the last bullet point and you see that it's kind of confusing, it's throwing you off, just leave it. You should get very high marks. Even end game doesn't have a lot of marks because it's a simple closing the game, right? It shouldn't have plenty of marks. Let's see. Uh, where did I put it? Mm, duh, 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 duh. I don't see it here. Yeah, exactly. I don't see it in the mark sheet. So the end game, don't stress about too much. And then if you get to update and there's a bullet point you don't know how to implement, just leave it. It's gonna complicate your stuff. You see with my code right now, it's already starting to be complicated because now I need to get input here. So I need a variable. So char, I'm gonna call it option, initialize it to null or to nothing. And then I use cin to get that user's choice, right? Cin option. But before I do that, I'm gonna say cout n9, and then I'm gonna say cout enter your choice, right? For the user, at least the user should be told that they should enter their choice instead of just showing a cursor loading, the user can't predict that now it's their time to type in the answer. They can't predict that. And then you store it inside ch option. Then we can cast ch option to a lowercase, right? So convert option to lowercase or uppercase, whatever works for you. So option, but remember I need to cast it back. So static cast to a char and to lower function, passing an option, right? Then once we've done this, we can use a switch statement, right, to activate. So we're gonna either use what is this? We either use a switch statement or an if statement, but I'll use a switch statement. So switch option, then we have case y, lowercase y because I used to lower. If you use to upper, you're gonna have to say uppercase letter y. And then n, right? And then I'm gonna have default when things don't go right. But then yeah, if it says yes, what we do is simply change is visible to be equals to true. And then here we have a rec world dot is visible is equals to false. And then if they chose an incorrect option, I guess we can just simply ignore. Okay, we could exit, but that's a bit extreme exiting. It's up to you what you wanna do. But I'm gonna start by saying cin.clear to restore it into a working state, and then cin.ignore to delete everything that's in the buffer. So 200 up until you see the \n, right? You could also output a print output to tell them what went wrong. So you can say C or CR incorrect option chosen, right? Yeah, and then that's pretty much all you can do. If you decide to exit, you can also exit. You can call the exit function here. That's up to you. But I'm not gonna exit because you could exit because most of the time they do exit when there's an error. So you could do that. I would advise you to do that exit because they're not specific with the question. And then you continue doing whatever you're doing with the array here, right? So let's try that. Let's do that. Let me build and run. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to call the update function, my bad. So let me close. So I need to call the update function here, which updates are equaled. Right, then I'm gonna build and run. Right, so there's the two game modes. Then I'm just gonna move the player. They said after each turn, so after you've moved. So I'm gonna say move up, right? To simply move up the player. And then you can ask the user what choice, right? Y is to show the option above ground. N is to not show the situation. Let's say you want to show it. You see that it's still empty, right? So I'm gonna say yes, Y for yes, and then boom. But something is not right here. Let's see. I see the problem. It is working, right? The problem is in my logic. You see that logic for update, the logic here. You see this one over here, right? It unintentionally populates everything, which becomes a problem. Let me show you what I mean. It becomes a problem. Let me show you. It's a I didn't think I had, but I get why it's complaining. So do you know why it's doing that? Because let's say you had the star here. Let's say this is the star, and then you had another star here, and then you populate around the stars. But let me see. Yeah, let's say you're still in this row, right? And then you find this one over here, and then you populate with other stars around it. So I'm gonna use black to show you that I've populated around it. Let's say you populate here, you populate here, and then you populate next, right? But remember, it's still at this column over here. So it's gonna move to the next column, and you see it found a new. We've already updated, we've put a new star. Then it's gonna surround that star again with other until it just displays stars everywhere. So that's why it was showing stars everywhere. So my logic is a bit flawed. They said for each water item above the ground, if there are any empty locations within 1 cell radius of the water item, those empty locations are filled with water. We did technically answer it, but it's not perfect, right? We needed to consider, yeah, this is a very hard paper. How can we achieve this without having to populate every location? So we could do this, right? We could change the narrative. Yeah, we could. Yeah, I have a let me see. It becomes populated. Oh, let me check something here. What about printing? Let me look at the printing part. This is wrong. Yeah, my code is wrong, to be honest. I don't know what miracles are making it work, but technically it's wrong because remember this, right? This array is a Boolean. So I was actually supposed to do an if statement to check if this location, if it's true, then I'm going to output the water item. If it's not, then I don't print the water item, basically. So let me double check something. Let's go to the top here. Um, to initialize, yeah. So it starts as empty. This is wrong. I don't know. I totally missed that. I missed that this very important information that I missed. So the array water you should initialize it to Boolean. The thing is C++, right? Like enough empty is equals to 0, which is the same as in C++, if you put 0 into a Boolean variable, it automatically interprets it as a false. But if you put any number other than a 0, it interprets it as a true. That's why it was working, but it shouldn't have worked. There should have been the array starts as false, meaning there's no water items at all. So let's phrase it in that way. Let's say false, not empty. Empty technically works, but it's a long way. You might forget about that. So it starts as false. The array starts as false, meaning there's no water items, right? And then where do we add the water items again? Um, yeah, add them at the bottom here, right? Um, which are valves? Wait. Oh, they said you place a water item after, yeah. So to place a water item, we simply just change this to true. My bad. I don't know how it was working, but yeah, it was working because remember, any number other than a 0, it automatically sets it to true. But that was a very incorrect way of approaching it because you guys don't know about that. So I should have just changed it, set it to true. So I'm gonna set that to true. And then at the top, it started as an empty, everything is empty, meaning false. Then when I print, I check if that variable is a true or a false. If it has a true, I print. If it has a false, I don't print. I print nothing. So it's gonna be like this. So this needs to be changed. So I'm gonna cut this and do this and say if this array is equals to a true, that means there is a water item. So I need to show a water item. So cout the star and the space, right? Else, this would mean that the array has a false. Yeah, this question paper is not easy, Shem. That means that would be a false. Then if it's a false, that means there's no water item, so it's empty space. So see out empty. So empty is this and the space after the empty thing. So yeah, now it looks like this. Now it's like it's proper way of phrasing it. Even though it was working, but it was working by chance. We don't operate with chance. We don't work that way. Then yeah, yeah, I would advise us to continue this tomorrow because I'm supposed to have a session with ComSci 2A students. But this question it involves a lot. Yeah, let me just deny him because the session is already over. This question involves a lot because we're gonna need this. I realize introducing that second array is actually gonna help us a lot, right? Introducing that second array is gonna help us a lot. So yeah, we could introduce a second array. That could help. That could help. But I'm not entirely sure because I'm thinking about it in my head. If we include the second array, it's gonna work in for that turn, and then once we are done going through, then we set everything to we change it to true after we've placed the around it. Yeah, using a second array would work, but there's a trick to it. I just came up with the solution in my head. There's a trick to it. You can use a second array to achieve this. Basically, it shouldn't populate everywhere. You see how this thing is populating? It doesn't populate everywhere all at once. It only finds the characters, right? And then yeah, so that means you have to change quite a lot, right? Like you want to change quite a lot of stuff. That's the annoying part. What do I mean by that? We're gonna have to change the array for this one to be actually integers. Then we're gonna introduce a second array of type boolean. Then we can achieve this thing that they want us to achieve. Yeah, there was a very tricky situation here. At least if they'd been clear from the get-go, then would have known, but they were not clear. So it's only if I'm only finding it out now that the second array should also be array of integers. So yeah, then we're gonna have a third array which is of a boolean. This third array, right? What we're going to do is that under create world, right? Inside here, when you're placing the what item, there it is here. Since it's gonna be an array of integers, that means we're gonna change this to water now. Then the second array, at that same location, row call, we're gonna change it to be equals to true, meaning that it is indeed occupied by a what item. Then inside the update function, we use the Boolean array and so that we only surround the ones that are initialized to true. I hope I'm making sense. So yeah, that's the only way I'm seeing it. We can achieve it. It can work, but that's the only way I'm seeing it. That's the only way it's probably gonna work. So yeah, we'll continue with that because as you can see, there's quite a lot involved in this question. So this update, yeah. So this update part, we need to change that, and then this update this part a little bit. The only part that we need to change here is in world. We're still gonna check if it's in world. That's fine. The only part we change is this if statement. We change it slightly, right? We're gonna replace that with something else. So yeah, that's it for today's session. Because I'm supposed to prepare for the second year's ComSci 2A students. Are you okay? Let me stop recording. Yeah, we'll continue tomorrow. Are you when are you guys writing? Are you writing Monday, tomorrow, or Tuesday?
Uh,